Hey everybody, this is Jesse from Arcane Nexus, and I am back to do another chart analysis on a high profile political candidate. Now, a few days ago, I did a deep dive on Vice President JD Vance's chart, who for some reason doesn't really have many analysis posted online for him. So I really wanted to get that done because not many people had covered it. But then I started taking a look at Donald Trump's chart again. I had done this a few years back, but took a fresh look now that I've acquired more knowledge in the International Human Design School. And I was really honestly quite blown away by the uniqueness and the powerful traits that Donald Trump holds in his chart. Now, I know that he is a highly contested figure. So I'm going to keep this as apolitical and unbiased as possible. And I'm going to treat it like any other chart. So just keep that in mind. I will make comparisons to current events or things that Trump has done, but I'll keep it as unbiased as possible for you guys. So when I do a reading, what I like to do first is take a glance at the chart and see what stands out at me. So I don't necessarily always start with looking at the profile or the incarnation cross or open centers, closed centers. I just look at it and say, okay, what's popping out? And the first thing that I notice with Donald Trump's chart is how much energy he has here coming up through the manifestation channels into the throat. So he has two complete manifestation channels, and then he has half of another one right here via a couple activations in gate 12. So all of this energy is coming up either from the ego, the sacral, or the solar plexus, all three of which are motors. So he has motorized energy moving directly up into the throat. And this is a big deal for someone to have, because that really gives him a lot of manifestation power. And he is a generator, so he's a manifesting generator, but really he probably doesn't so much feel like most generators feel. He probably would identify more with being a manifester, but he's definitely not. He's still here to respond to life. And the reason I say he probably wouldn't identify so much with this is, number one, we all see how Trump acts, what he's up to. He's definitely pushing through and impacting as much as possible at every turn, which is normally a trait of a manifester with a closed and repelling aura. But here's that sacral. It's definitely defined. And if you notice, this channel right here is unconscious. So he only has one way in and out of the sacral, and it's via an unconscious channel. So he's probably not as aware of the feeling of that sacral response as most other generators who have some sort of conscious activation here. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead and take a look. What else pops up to me? So I see that we have a completely open identity center here, a completely open head center, always searching for inspiration, not knowing what is interesting and what's not interesting. And then we have some openness down in the root and the spleen also. Another thing I notice is that most of the activity here is on the right side of the chart. So this is going to suggest that he's more of an abstract, emotional person rather than a logical person, as I'm sure many people would agree with me there. So he has a good mixture of different energies here, though. He has some collective channels. We got the 3536 and the 1762 as collective channels. And then we have two tribal channels, the 4521, also called the money line. Da, da, da. And then we have the 596, or the channel of mating, which is a tribal energy. And then he has like a couple individual energies mixed in, but not really so much individual, which is interesting. And we're going to deep dive everything I just mentioned. So at the first half of this video, I'm going to focus on the nature of his true self. And then towards the end, we're going to get into the not self and his not self motivations. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in here with what we have going on up top. So we see he has a defined ajna, which means that he has a particular way of conceptualizing and thinking about the world. And he feels many times like he is certain about whatever he thinks. So we see that he has one channel that connects down here to the throat. So gate 17 up here is called the gate of opinions. And down at the bottom in the throat, we have gate 62, which is the preponderance of the small. And when both of these are activated, it forms the channel, which is called the channel of acceptance. So as everyone can very clearly see, Trump has lots of opinions and he loves to talk about them. And he also loves to mention the supporting details that led him to have the opinion that he has. So I love really human design because we can see this visually right here, that the opinions are just falling out of his mouth into his throat and being expressed. So I think everybody can agree that this part of the chart is definitely 100% accurate. And I want to go a little bit deeper into some of the lines that he has activated in the channel of acceptance. For gate 17, he has a line that's called discrimination. Now, this isn't inherently on its face a bad thing. It means discrimination as the power to discriminate quality from disquality and good from bad, to separate the wheat from the chaff, that sort of discrimination. And just like everything in human design, you can use it in a positive way or a negative way. So this means that his opinions are formed around the concept of being able to discriminate this from that. That's the center of how his opinions are formed. So as those opinions come down out of his ajna center, they end up in gate 62, where he has two separate activations. One of those activations is line 4, and the name of that is asceticism. And this specific flavor of the 62nd gate often tends the carrier of it to have periods of isolation that they use to reflect on recent experiences. So we don't really see much of Donald Trump out of the public eye. So who knows how much he's reflecting or what. But theoretically, Trump is going to take breaks from time to time to really sit there and ask himself what just happened and what are the details behind what happened. Because he always has this desire to form an opinion, but if he doesn't have enough details, he's going to have to slow it down and give himself time to look at the big picture, the collective picture, in order to formulate another opinion. And keep in mind, this can also work the other way. So you can have the opinion first, and then you can find the supporting details. So just keep that in mind with all channels whenever you're looking at human design, that the impetus for whatever energetic example you're making can begin on either side of the channel. So Trump has another activation in gate 62, and that's the 6th line. And the name of this is called self-discipline. And this is all about saving money through attention to details. Doge. Very interesting. So moving on from this channel, we can jump into the channel of transitoriness. So he has this unconscious, completely unconscious channel connecting his solar plexus to his throat. And the name of this can be a bit confusing, but luckily Ra gave us a backup terminology for this, and another name is Jack of all trades. And in the most basic way, this is all about the need to experience something new, or the need to experience like a crisis, meaning something that was shaken up or changed out of the usual. And then this new emotional experience that resulted from the crisis, otherwise known as changing it up, is spoken through the 35th gate in the throat. And the name of the 35th gate is the gate of change. So this is where the crisis happens, or the change from the status quo happens, and it ends up being expressed up here in the throat. And that's why it's called the gate of change, because this is the vocalization of the result of the crisis. So Donald Trump has this completely unconscious. So if you asked him, do you like experiencing crises so that you can express the purpose of that crisis or what you felt in that crisis, he would probably say, no, I wouldn't do that. Why would I do that? But it's unconscious. So, and from the outside, I think many people would comment that he loves creating or being around crises and then talking about it. So that's really the framework of this energy here. And this is a channel of manifestation. And so it's intended to impact the world. Now, taking a deeper look at the lines that he has in the channel of transitoriness, in the 36th gate, he has line 3 active, and this is called transition. And the purpose of transition is to give the carrier an ability to establish a new order out of the ashes of the old order, the ability to endure crisis and embrace change. And we can definitely see this. Like, this is like a phoenix from the ashes sort of thing. And Trump talks about this quite a bit. He says, you know, America was ruined and now I'm fixing it. Or make America great again, implying that at some point he believes it wasn't great, but now it will be. So that's where the transitoriness is coming from. It was like that, and now it will be like this. Transitoriness. And this energy is pervasive in him. We can see that his unconscious sun, his design sun, is in the 36th gate. So the sun being there means that this is a big thing for his general personality. Well, not his personality, but his self. This is a main characteristic in Donald Trump, is this darkening of the light crisis and the ability to transform an experience into something new. So definitely, again, when I looked deeply into this, I was thinking, wow, that's him. That's him for sure. And now let's go deeper on the 35th gate, which is called the Gate of Change. And he has line 3 here as well. And this one's called collaboration. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Now, something very interesting here is that Donald Trump has this one in detriment. You can see down here, we have the little downward pointing arrow. And so this doesn't mean it's necessarily something bad, but it's kind of a challenge that he has in his life. And he has the opportunity to gain some wisdom out of dealing with this challenge. So what the detriment says is needing to be the center of attention that ignores the importance of others. So, pretty sure everybody can really see where that's coming from. Thank you, Rave I Ching and Ra Uru for somehow knowing exactly what we're dealing with here, all the way from the past. But yeah, so we can see that there's a lot of crisis or change, or the ending of the status quo, and the ability to express that change through the throat, vocally, or in any other form of self-expression. And on top of that, Donald Trump to himself is the best person to be talking about this change. He feels that he needs to be the center of attention and the one explaining this. And I'm going to soon talk about another way where he has something else that's very similar to that in his chart. But yeah, for a second, let's pop down here. So this is not a manifesting channel. This is a tribal channel. And this is called the channel of mating. And notice that this is also unconscious. So despite the name, the channel of mating isn't specifically about mating and nothing else. That's actually just a very good metaphor that Ra used, so that we understand what the purpose of this channel is. This channel that's in the defense circuit. The 6th gate is known as friction. And this gate is all about conflict. So friction and conflict on an emotional level, because this is in the solar plexus, otherwise known as the emotional center. So this is the emotional energy to induce conflict and friction. So we got that. Then on the other side of the channel, we have a gate called dispersion. And what dispersion is there for is to break down barriers to achieve union. So the reason I think Ra chose the name channel of mating to describe this energy is because we can best understand it from the perspective of, let's say, a pair of young lovers. And at first, when they first meet, one or the other out of the two of them is going to create this friction or sexual tension, as we would call it. And so it's kind of a provocative thing. You're provoking the other one, but ultimately the goal is that together they achieve union. So the goal is that eventually one of them brings down the walls, pulls the curtains down, and lets the sunlight through. So this is a very powerful energy here that Donald Trump has. He has his design Earth in the 6th gate and the moon in the 59th gate. So this is a pretty substantial aspect of his design. And we can definitely see that Donald Trump brings conflict and friction wherever he goes. And the question is this bringing down walls? Or is this putting up walls? And I'll just give you guys a moment to think about that, because it's both. It's both at the same time. So he's kind of having this effect of really bringing people into the fold who previously never would identify as being in the fold of Donald Trump. And at the same time, he's isolating other people from him, where he's pushing people out of the way. So he definitely has something going on here. But overall, I would say that from Trump's perspective, he has brought down a lot more walls than he has put up in a metaphorical way. So this is another one I was just totally blown away by the accuracy of this chart. All right, so we're going to jump up to the last of the 4 channels that I haven't talked about yet. And this one, I saved it till the end because it's called the money line. Dun, dun, dun. So I guess it's just a huge coincidence that Donald Trump has the money line. Rod just had really good luck with it, coming up with this stuff. But yeah, so this definitely suggests a materialist type of person who has the ability to accumulate material wealth or straight up money. And what we have going on here is at the bottom we have the 21 sitting in the ego center, and the 21 is called the gate of the hunter or the huntress. And up here at the top we have the 45, which is called gathering together. Now let me explain a little bit more in depth how this channel fits into the bigger picture of the body graph. And I will begin by saying that this is a tribal energy. And the rest of the tribal circuit, I'll outline it here. I need to get my little on-screen marker thing, but the rest of the tribal circuit runs through here, then down here, back up here, and comes back into the ego. So if you notice, there's only one way that this ego energy can make it to the throat, and that is through this money line channel. This is the only voice of the tribe, so to speak. So this person's very influential, they're materialistic, but from the perspective of this person, they see themselves as the spokesperson of the tribe. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. People that we often say are very materialistic or act like Donald Trump, I think a lot of people believe that their motivation is completely selfish, like as if they just want to control everything and do everything for themselves. But if they have the money line activated, especially in this configuration of Donald Trump, he's likely not seeing it that way. He's seeing it as, I am the most appropriate person and the most capable person of being able to speak on behalf of the tribe. And the tribe, in this case, would be his political party or the people that support him and the people he's representing. And of course, it could also be his family, his colleagues, and the people in his immediate circle. So he feels like he is the guy for the job to speak on behalf of his tribe. And that's exactly what role he is playing. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this channel because this is very important, and it's really important also to distinguish it from the channel of transitoriness, which is kind of doing a similar thing, but in effect they're completely different. Now, I bet Donald Trump's awareness is mostly residing in this channel. So he's highly identified with this energy. He knows that he has the capability to speak on behalf of people. He knows that he has lots of material possessions and therefore can attract people into a sphere of influence. So I'm going to bet that if Donald Trump were sitting in front of me and I was doing a reading, he would really say, this is me right here. The channel of money, this is my energy. But we can't forget that he also has these other aspects going on here. So let me go ahead and take a deeper dive into the lines that he has activated in this. And up here in the 45th gate, the gate of gathering together, he has two activations. And one of them is the first line. And remember, first line activations, first line energies are all about investigating and forming a foundation. So we can put that term together with the name of the gate and say that he is effectively forming a foundation to gather people together. So in the Rei Ching, this specific line is called canvassing, and it's all about educating the uncommitted into joining up with the group and its representative. So canvassing, that's like going around and informing as many people as possible, whatever you want to inform them, in the hopes that they join with you, with what you're doing, and join with the idea of you being their spokesman, you being their king and leader. And now I will mention the detriment of this energy too. The detriment of this, if Donald Trump is living in the shadow, is going to be represented by overzealousness and proselytization. And this tends to alienate people as much as it brings them into the fold. So if he's living in the shadow, if he's embodying this energy in a certain way, it's going to tend to alienate just as many people as it includes. And now combine that with the last channel we talked about down here, with the channel of mating, with the friction and the dispersion going on. I mentioned that he can bring down walls, but also put up walls with this. And now up here, we're seeing again that he can bring a lot of people into the fold, or he can alienate a lot of people. And look at America. No matter what side you're on, you can see that this happened. Overall, he's made half the world hate him and half the world love him. That's why I even started the video saying that he's infamous or beloved. And this is very consistent in his chart. So interesting to look at. Now let's jump down. Oh, sorry, there's one other activation in the 45th gate. So line 5 here. The name of line 5 is leadership. All right, well, he's the president of the US. This is so coincidental. So leadership is all about having a gift for expressing leadership on a material plane. Pretty simple. He has a knack for leading people. And he's not leading them through spirituality or through education or through anything else. It's through the material plane. So he's saying, do you want to save a lot of money? I'm going to lower taxes. That way you have more money. So this is exactly his pitch as to why you should join the fold of Donald Trump, is because you will be rich. And he's the man to get rich too. I mean, this totally makes sense. He has a lot of tools in his belt for becoming rich. So it's not surprising he did. All right, so now we'll get down to the 21st gate. So the name of the 21st gate is the Gate of the Hunter, as I already mentioned, and he has an activation in the first line. So again, we're talking about forming a foundation here. So we're forming a foundation of being a hunter. And the name of this specific line is Warning. And what this means is use of force as a last resort. So basically, by being the hunter, it just comes with a threat. This energy comes with a threat, like try me and find out. But it doesn't always have to be used in the negative. It's going to be there to force respect on other people through the threat of using force, potentially. Like, if you act up, then I'm going to use force on you. This is in the aura. So combine that with what's going on the other side, where you have this possible alienation or people joining up and supporting him becoming the leader. And then you have this background threat of like, watch me and find out what happens. So again, I see this totally happening in the world with Donald Trump. So yeah, we went over his 4 life force energies, but there's a lot of more interesting things here, but I'll just hit a couple of them. So up here in gate 11, which is the gate of ideas, let's take a look at what the Ray of I Ching says about him specifically. So he has 2 activations, the first line and the fourth line. He has attunement and the teacher. Let's take a look at what style of ideas Donald Trump tends to cultivate. So this one says attunement, the serendipity of being in the right place at the right time. In exaltation, the nourishment derived from being with those who share the same goals and aspirations, the gift of finding those who will value your ideas. And then in the detriment, it says the fear of anonymity, the sense that no one will value their ideas. So again, we have this big divide going on. Half the world is nourished by his ideas and the things that he's sharing, and the other half don't value it. So just know that Trump would be very sad to know that some people don't value his ideas. It's part of his ego, in the colloquial sense, is having people around who agree with him. So we notice, though, that this gate doesn't connect down to the throat, like the opinions connect to the throat on the other side. So that's interesting, because these ideas on this side are abstract, and over here we have like logical based opinions. So actually what Trump, when he's spewing his opinions, they're based on logic, at least according to him. So it's not kind of like abstract ideas that he's contemplating so much as, from his view, he's figured something out, he's formulated a logical opinion, and he's sharing it. So yeah, another thing is he has his design sun in the 12th gate, and then he has a second activation in the 12th gate too. So this is called the gate of caution or standstill. And I want you guys to see the 2 activations that he has here. So the personality sun, which bears great weight in his overall characteristics, is called the monk. And the above the line description is withdrawal that can only be maintained with communal support. The beauty and harmony possible beyond the reach of temptation. The expression of social withdrawal and its value when supported by others. And the description for the detriment is Simon the Stylite, totally and often absurd withdrawal, the absurd expression of social caution and extreme withdrawal from emotional contact. So this one is very interesting because he's not generally withdrawn. Like, he's always on TV, he's always stirring the pot, he's always coming out there and saying something that everybody picks up. But it makes me wonder, what is going on with Donald Trump behind the scenes when we can't see? Because someone with this chart, let's be real, they wouldn't want people to think that they're taking time to reflect or time to consider or time to have inaction in the face of confronting temptation. So, but maybe Trump does do this. And maybe those few years that he got quiet during Biden's presidency were this for him. And then he's coming back with a vengeance after. So, I mean, you guys, if anybody knows any more about his life, I really don't, but maybe you could comment on some examples of times where Trump has withdrawn and taken inaction in times of temptation or when he's not sure. Because this 12th gate, I have it personally. I know quite a few people who have this. And usually these are people that are half the time staying by themselves and they turn down invitations. They're like, no, that party, I couldn't possibly go to that. No thanks. And then the other half of the time, they're very eager to go attend events and do things with people and all kinds of exciting things. So I'm not really aware of this happening with Trump, but I mean, it's theoretically very important to him because this is his personality sun in the 12th gate. All right, where to next? Yeah, I think it's time to go ahead and touch upon the not self. So everything we've said so far is Trump's potential if he's living as his true self and if he's responding to life correctly with the sacral and also making slow emotional decisions and not moving very fast with deciding things, kind of slow decisions until he has relative clarity. So if Trump is making decisions based on his authority and if he's following his strategy of waiting to respond to life, then all of this is the potential of what could happen. And I would have to say, I think his real life looks a lot like these life force energies that he has. So I'm kind of leaning towards that he understands himself and that he knows how to make the best decisions within himself. So that doesn't comment at all on whether or not the decisions are good for other people, good for the world, good for the country. All that says is that he's potentially on the right track or not, or AKA living correctly. And I think Donald Trump appears, from my perspective, to be living his design pretty effectively. But nobody is free of their not self-influence. Even Ra always said that even after writing all these books, teaching the classes, he still found himself listening and entertaining the voice of his not self. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Donald Trump's not self voice would sound like. So starting up here at the top, we have a completely open head center. And what this tells us is that Donald Trump doesn't know what's interesting or intellectually stimulating. So all the inspiration is coming in from the outside. He's picking it up from the environment, from the people around him. But he doesn't really have a good way to distinguish between like, this thing is very important for me to be inspired by, and this other thing, not so much. He's just kind of absorbing all of it and doing with it what he pleases. But he doesn't have a good way to determine, okay, this is a good thought, this is a good inspirational moment, and this one's not. So many people, over half of the people on the planet, have this undefined, and it's not really a big deal. It doesn't actually mean that much. It just means that you're kind of a sponge for inspiration coming in from around you. Jumping down here, this one though, this bears more consequence. This is a completely open identity center. And this means that Donald Trump has had a program running in the background in his mind for his whole life probably, saying, what does it mean to be me? Where am I going? When am I going to find love? Do I know what direction I'm going in? And we can all see that this is a super successful man. And that doesn't mean that this open identity is an incorrect presumption. Let me explain how that works. For a lot of people with open identity centers, since it's been a long-running question in their head of what does it mean to be me, where am I going? They've spent a lot of time planning and choosing a path for themselves, choosing an identity, so to speak. So Donald Trump probably in his teenage years started wondering, what does it mean to be Donald J. Trump? Where am I going? What am I doing with my life? And then he began using his mind here to formulate a plan for himself. And now by his current age, when you ask him, well, what's your trajectory? Where are you going? He would give you a very clear answer. But I kind of want to explain what it feels like for someone that has this defined versus what I just explained for Trump, because there's subtle differences, but it's very important. So for someone with a defined identity center, they don't get to choose where they're going. They feel within themselves like they are on a trajectory already. These are the people with it defined, let's say. Those are the people that when they're a kid, they're like, I will be a police officer. I'm going to be a police officer. And no matter what you say to the person, and no matter how many times you ask for a logical explanation as to why, they will just say, oh, because I am. Like, that's me. I'm going to be a police officer. I am going to be this person or that. So I hope I illustrated that pretty well, that Donald Trump probably chose this direction on a very conscious level rather than surrendering to life and his built-in direction. And I'll also point out that one of the qualities of someone with a completely open or just undefined identity center is the propensity to be a great actor or actress. And lo and behold, Trump was an actor. And if you think about it, that makes total sense, because if you don't have a built-in personality or identity, then you can pick and choose what identity you want to have. So you can put on different costumes, so to speak. You're a chameleon. You can pick and choose who you want to be. But in Donald Trump's case, I think he committed to a certain planned path that he created at some point earlier in his life. So let's jump down here to the splenic system. So the quality of an open splenic system, in a nutshell, is that you will hold on to things that aren't good for you because you're kind of lacking an internal signal that tells you, okay, this is bad. This is not good. This is not good for me. Let's knock this off. So he doesn't have that. But he does have lots of hanging gates here pointing to other centers. And these do bear a little bit of importance. So I'll go ahead and describe this one. This is the 57th gate, and this is all about clarity. So the ability to find clarity in something. And remember, since this is a hanging gate in an open center, he doesn't have consistent access to this clarity, but depending on the people that are around him or the current transits for that day, he might catch glimpses of this internal clarity that he has. It's an instinctual clarity. And you see that it's pointing up here at the throat. So it's like he wants to be able to express this sense of clarity that he has, but when he tries to, it's not going to come out like how he's actually experiencing it. It'll come out some other way. So that's interesting. Like Donald Trump at times experiences this internal clarity, but he just really can't speak it. Instead, what he can speak consistently is that he's the leader of the tribe, that a crisis happened and he's still here and he made it through. And then up here we have him sharing his discriminatory opinions. So yeah, but that clarity, that doesn't make it. But within Trump himself, he will experience some form of clarity. And down here we have a gate 18, well actually two activations by Neptune in both cases. And this is the gate of correction. So this is all about the ability to see what needs to be fixed. But without the 58 on the other side down here in the root, he doesn't really have consistent energy to fix those things. And he doesn't even have consistent access to knowing what needs to be fixed, because yet again, this will only be activated in proximity of the right people or a certain transit. So I do definitely see this with Donald Trump, and I haven't looked at this yet, but let's look at the specific flavor of this energy. All right, interesting. So he has two activations. One is line 3. It's called Zealot. And the Ray V. Ching says, as the above the line description, the vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic and fundamental human rights. and more specifically in the third line, the zealot, the energetic obsession to clean house. The dissolution of old forms at an acceptable price, an obsession with correction and its critical potential. So very, very interesting here. Very interesting. Because again, I'll mention Doge firing a bunch of federal employees, and his general vibe of this is all broken, we have to throw it out. So I'm glad I clicked on this because I had forgotten to check these lines when I looked last time. And I would be really interested to see if he's had this activated a lot recently, because it seems like he's clearing the house a bit more obsessively this time around in his second term. So I'll go ahead and check that out and maybe leave a comment below the video. And then down here we have a second activation by Neptune in line 4, and the name of it is the incompetent. So the below the line description is difficulties as a result of inadequacies that cannot be resolved because of inadequacies. What? Everybody reread. Okay, I sort of get that. So let's look at the exalted description. Maybe we'll understand a little bit better. Given this negative position, survival through suffering, the inability to correct and its potential for suffering. Okay, and the detriment, indecision and anxiety, and no escape from misfortune, the demands of correction and potential to generate anxiety. Right, so I think basically what this is saying is that he intends to correct things, but he kind of trips on himself. I haven't spent much time studying this particular line before, but that's what's coming to mind right now, is he kind of trips himself up while he's trying to resolve something because he's not resolving it in the best way. So yeah, so remember though, he has inconsistent access to this energy of correcting, but it seems like recently it's been pretty consistent. All right, so we have a couple other things we can look at down here. He has the gate of development, or the gate of beginnings here in the open root center. So at times this is going to put lots of pressure on the 42nd gate, which he does not have. And so he has new beginnings, the energy to develop things or start new things, but he does not have the capability of easily finishing the chapter, closing the book, or completing that cycle. So he likes starting things. He doesn't so much have the propensity to finish them, but this would likely bother him in his not self, that he wants to start things, but he doesn't really finish them. That's probably a thought in his head quite frequently, is why can't I finish what I start? Where am I going? Am I going in the right direction? What does it mean to be me? And why can't I just finish things? And why don't I have the energy to fix everything that I want to? So that's referencing the 58 that's missing here. So with the 32, we have the gate of continuity. This is unconscious. It's falling way down here in the activation, so this isn't such a big deal, but it is in the tribal circuit. And this is kind of like the energy to keep going, to continue something. So across from it in the 54, what he does not have is the marrying maiden, which is all about taking advantage of a particular situation in every way you can so that you can rise to the top with limited resources. So he doesn't have that, but he has the tendency to be good at continuing things. So he's looking for that let's take advantage of it energy, and he doesn't really have that, surprisingly, but he does have the ability to stick with it and continue. So yeah, I think that's it for his life force energy and the not self theme. So I'll go ahead and take a look now at his profile and talk about where that fits in a little bit. And he's a 1-3 profile. So this is all about being a person who's investigating in order to build a foundation, and then also experimenting through trial and error processes. So the 1-3 people really get down dirty to the bottom of it in order to figure out the best way to build a foundation and the best way to go forward in general. So many people are 1-3s. This is a pretty popular profile in human design. And these people get scratched and bruised a lot because they don't take no for an answer. If they ask somebody, do you think it would be a good idea to skateboard off the side of a cliff into the ocean? And if everyone told them, no, you would probably maybe die, you shouldn't do that, you might hit a rock, I don't know, but just don't do that. The 1-3 will say, well, I'm doing it because I'm the only one who could possibly ever find out. So even though you guys all think you know what will happen, maybe in this case, I'll survive, and then the world will know that I survived and you can indeed skateboard off the side of a cliff into the ocean. So I think we kind of see this. Trump tries many different things. I know a little bit about his careers before being president. He was an actor, a real estate developer, back on TV again, starting game shows, doing all sorts of things. He's gotten his hands into all kinds of things. But it's important to keep in mind that his motivation behind this is, I need to try it because that's the only way the world will know for sure what happens when Donald Trump tries this thing. So it can get messy because he'll make a lot of mistakes. But 201-3 making mistakes is not that big of a deal. They're actually proud to make mistakes because making that mistake is providing knowledge for the rest of the world. The 1-3 does it so that the rest of us don't have to do it. We can just look at what the 1-3s did, some of which didn't survive their experiments, and we can say, wow, thanks. Now I don't have to try that because you tried it. So yeah, I think that is wrapping it up for Donald Trump at this time. And I want to let you guys know that soon I will be uploading a composite chart analysis for Donald Trump along with JD Vance. I wasn't planning on doing this at first, just like I wasn't planning on doing Trump's. But once I learned about both of them and I deep dived their charts, I really found it super interesting how they work together. And in many ways, Trump can offer support to JD in places where he's lacking and vice versa. JD Vance has a lot of energies that really complement Trump's. Now, I'll give you a little teaser and say that the true power, from what I'm seeing, is in Donald Trump. He's the more powerful person, right? JD Vance is a good person for keeping things running, but he's definitely not as much of a character as Donald Trump is, but I'll save the rest for later. Thanks for listening, guys. As usual, if you want to ask a question or leave a comment or correct something that I've said, please be my guest, and I'll try to get back to that very soon. Yeah, thanks for watching.